and why?
My favourite opponents would probably be the hardest matches I've ever had. As you know, because you're quite knowledgeable about wrestling, I know that I was very committed, and I was always trying to have the best match that's ever been, and I did that every night. You know, I tried the hardest to have better than they'd ever been before every single night, and the only people that could match those matches were when it was really tough, and kicks were kicks, and punches were punches, and slams were slams, and things were really hard, you know. And that's when the best in somebody comes out, when it's a hard match. If you watch a football match, if they're winning 7-0, they don't really play after that. You know, they're 5-0, they don't play. If they're neck and neck right at the end, in the last 5 minutes, it's still as good as it was in the first 5 minutes. It was the same with wrestling. Wrestling used to be so that if I had an easy match, somebody that didn't really want to get stuck in, my best didn't come out. If I had somebody that was really tough and strong, the best of me came out. So the favourite opponents were the ones that give me the hardest time. And it sounds a bit contrary and it's a bit stupid that the ones that did me the most damage and gave me the most stitches and the most bruises and black eyes were the best matches, and therefore, in my opinion, were my favourite opponents. And those people were Marty Jones. We started at the same time. We had a love-hate relationship. I admired his skill and he admired my skill. When I got in the ring, and I always used to say to him, if I saw him before, I used to say to him, lace him up tight, long hair, because you're going to get it. And I used to give him it, and I mean give him it. And the crowd knew it, I was giving it him. I used to kick him as hard as I could kick him. He used to kick me as hard as he could kick me. And the promoters loved it. The promoters used to boom off it. But I could guarantee if me and Marty Jones were anywhere before, it would be absolutely full. Dynamite Kid was a fantastic opponent later in my career, because when Dynamite was about 18, I didn't wrestle Dynamite in England, very rarely, early days, because I was top of the bill and Dynamite was just starting, you know. So he was coming up, he would only be 16, 17, I was probably 25 or something, 24, and I was top of the bill and Dynamite was just starting. I didn't really get into gear with Dynamite until he'd spent some time in Canada, and he'd been to Japan and wrestled in Japan, and then he came back to England. Not for long, but he did come back to England. And those matches in England, they were legendary matches. They were incredible. I once saw a magazine article in Japan, and the whole wrestling magazine, it was a weekly or monthly publication. It was this thick. And the whole magazine was pictures in slow motion of some of mine and Dynamite's moves, which I'd never seen before. It was a full magazine. It was like and I never even I just looked at it and said, that's great. You know, in those days, I never took it and saved it. But you'd be flabbergasted if you saw it. It was the slow motion moves, 3 or 4 pictures every page of different moves that we'd done during a superb match we had in Tokyo. You know, he was a fantastic opponent as well. But I mean, there's loads of guys out there that are really good. Some of the Japanese guys that you never hear, Fujinami was one of the best technical wrestlers ever. He was a real second only to Inoki. Inoki was an unbelievable wrestler, you know. I saw Inoki, who told me before he went in, dislocate a guy's shoulder in the first 10 seconds, and he told me he was going to do it before he went in the ring. The guy he was doing it to didn't know. he was having some sort of problem with him, and he just dislocated his shoulder in about 2 seconds. Very clever, very talented wrestler.
Have you got a least favourite opponent?
Least favourite opponent are the people that I didn't want to really wrestle, who weren't up to the mark, you know, who weren't fit enough to keep up with me, who weren't brave enough to take the hard ones, and who didn't have the feel for it. So there's lots of guys in the business to make a living that don't really want to get hurt, want to do the distance, want to carry on. When I first started, early days, the promoters thought, well, this guy's brand new, he's fantastic, he's doing loads of fantastic moves, he's great. We'll put him on, second top of the bill, all over the place, because I wasn't getting my money. I was not as expensive as the Les Kelletts and the McMahonis and all the rest of the guys. So I was a good value for money wrestler. So they booked me out every night, and that was 19, 20. I never went out, I wrestled every day of the week, or if I wasn't wrestling, I was travelling to wrestle. If I wasn't travelling to wrestle, I was in the gym. My whole life was revolved around this little ring, you know, this wrestling ring. I used to get the shows at 5 o'clock, I used to work out, sleep on the bench in the dressing room, have a shower, get ready, work out again before I get in the ring, wrestle, get in the car, drive wherever I'm driving, hotel or home, get back in the car again in the morning, go to the gym, work out, go and have some lunch, set off for the wrestling show, every day. No social life, no friends, no social life. And I used to think, if I get injured, I'll have 6 weeks off with a broken leg, I don't care about it, I watch telly, get fat, eat crisps and drink beer. I thought, that's great, that's fantastic, it must be fantastic that. So I got a mental thing. I was really angry with the business because I was working so hard in it, not really getting where I wanted to be. And I thought, right, I will get injured and I'll have some time off. Because you can't phone a program and say, I've got 15 matches next month for you, I don't want to do them because I'm tired and I don't want to have some time out. They'd say, don't ever bother again, you know, that phase. So I thought, if I really get an injury, not that bad, but I get an injury, I'll have some time off, you know. So I used to get in the ring and I'd be snorting, you know, I'd be stood the referee in the middle of me saying, you know, listen to what I tell you, and all the rest of it. And I'd be snorting in the ring, and I'd be on with somebody that's in there, they've probably got a job part-time, they've got a wife that wants to go to the hairdresser and know her hair dyed blonde, they've got the kid at private school and the car's on drip, and they don't want to really get injured, they don't want to be out of the 5 jobs they've got that month, you know. Just filling in the bill. They just want to get through this and go on to the next stage. And I was in there thinking, I'm blowing smoke, and I'd be thinking, what can I do that's going to be really spectacular? Can we lift the roof off? Can I smash the ring to pieces? Can I throw you through the glass window? What can I do that's different? That'll get me recognised. That'll make things different. And all the guys I was wrestling, they didn't want that. They were scared to death. I remember once Spencer Churchill, if Spencer hears this interview, he'll know. And he came out there, he was the referee in a match. And we had an unbelievable match, it was fantastic. And he came back in the dressing room and he said, when you're wrestling, somebody's going to get really hurt. He said, and I don't want it to be me, I'll never referee you again. And he said it half jokingly but half serious, you know, and I really took that on board.
What have been the worst injuries suffered in the ring?
All injuries are bad. I mean, some hurt more than others, but some that don't hurt last longer. The worst injury of all, I think the most dramatic injury was when I was wrestling in Glasgow at the Eldorado, no, at the Kelvin Hall in Glasgow, and they'd used a boxing ring. I mean, instead of transporting a ring up from Leeds or Birmingham, they'd used a ring that was in the hall. Kelvin Hall's a bit massive because they have lots of boxing events, and the boxing ring has hooks that hold the ropes on. Now, a wrestling ring has a dub-end hook, the hook's cut off at the end so it's not sharp. The boxing ring had a sharp, pointed hook with the ring on, and I hit the corner post, and the hook gouged into my leg, and I fell out the ring. It was hung up by it speared me through the thigh. I was hung upside down from the corner of the ring, and the blood was just running from my leg down and over my face and down onto the floor. I couldn't believe it, and it distended my leg about this far, so that the hook had pulled in and pulled the whole muscle this way, and I actually reached up, and in fear and strength I pulled myself up and actually unhooked myself off the hook and got on the floor and walked. I knew it was really serious, and got back to the dressing room straight away because I knew, and the blood was going. And one of the boys put a tourniquet around it, and I'm laying on the table in the dressing room, and the blood's hitting the ceiling. I mean, literally squirting out, you know. They got me, they got the emergency there, they were there in literally, they were there, I think the St John's ambulance were there, but I think it was too much for the St John's ambulance and they panicked. So they sent for the other people and they came and they took me to hospital. And the real deal was that I'd cut the internal muscle, the leg bicep, and the skin. So I had 17 stitches in the muscle itself and 20 stitches in the skin. The scar is this long, you know, and it hurt, but I was back wrestling again after that 2 weeks later, with it strapped, and I used to stick it together. The minute the stitches were out, I used some Japanese stuff that was like an adhesive tape that you put over cuts. I used to put the adhesive tape over it and then do like a crisscross thing to pull all my flesh together. Then I used to wrap it and put a knee bandage over it. And after 2 weeks, it didn't hurt. That's the amazing thing after a couple of weeks. But the most serious injury was all my back problems. I mean, I had I've crushed a vertebrae in my neck, which affected some of the muscle tissue in my hand. And I broke 2 vertebrae in my lower back. I mean, part of my retirement was that I had that operation. I never thought I'd recover from that operation I had. I had 2 discs welded together, and I had all the cartilage between the discs removed and everything. A bit similar to the way Bridges is having done now. And I had all that done and thought, well, that's it. My wrestling career is all over. But I started to train, and it wasn't. I wrestled again after that.
Have any of your opponents had bad injuries whilst wrestling?
Yeah, lots of them. I've seen some horrific injuries. I met a guy recently here, John Muscles England.
Yeah.
He was a good wrestler. He ripped his, I've never seen that before, he ripped his ligament in his ankle. So his foot went floppy, had no control over his foot. And he came out of the dressing room and I saw that, I couldn't believe it. But I've seen 2 or 3 people die in the ring, you know, so that's the worst thing. There's no worse injury than that. You know, Mal Kirk lay down and never got up. I mean, Alan Dennison came out into the dressing room in Southport and died in Big Daddy's arms, believe it or not. You know, I've seen lots of people who died in the business, died for the business and in the business.
What were your favourite venues in the UK and least favourite?
My favourite venues were the places where I made the most money, and the places I made the most money were places like Dundee was amazing. George Kidd promoted Dundee, and George Kidd was a wrestler turned promoter, and he was very generous, and he used to pay me better than any of the UK promoters because I'd go up there and guarantee the tickets would be sold a week before we went. And I wrestled George Kidd. He was a little smaller than me, George Kidd, but he loved the crowd. He loved the real black and white between George Kidd, the hero, and Rollerball Rocco, the villain, and he loved that. And that on posters, he used to make posters, and it only had our names on it. Nobody else, you know. And it didn't need anyone else's name. We did have a full show, there was always people there, but the wrestlers there, obviously there's 3 or 4 matches or 5 matches. But it was packed. And there was a couple of the other guys that went up there and fought George Kidd and packed the place as well, you know what I mean? But in my time, he used to really, really look after me. I used to love to go and wrestle up there. And the audience participated, because he was a local guy, he was on the telly, a little local TV show, so he used to promote it as well on the TV show, and they absolutely adored him. He was God in Scotland, especially in Dundee. But that was a one-off. But the main, I mean, I like the big venues. So you're looking at Fairfield Halls, Croydon, the Albert Hall. I've got to say, of all the places, my very favourite would be the Albert Hall. I love the history there, I love all of that. And the crowds there were brilliant. But a different atmosphere in the Albert Hall, because of the way it was situated. The audience reaction was strange. It rippled, it didn't peak. You know, you go to some places and if people shout, it's instantaneous. And if you go in the Albert Hall, if they shout or cheer or clap or whatever, it ripples around. It's a different atmosphere. But Madison Square Garden, perfect wrestling venue, absolutely superb. Audience are nearby. It's not as big as you think, Madison Square Garden. I think it holds 10,000, but when you go inside, it's, you know, you imagine it to be enormous. I was quite surprised it's not as well. When you put that against the Tokyo Dome, you can't even see the people in the end seats, in the bleachers. You can't see the faces. You know, Madison Square is different. It's more round. But I have a lot of venues I really like. You know.
Have you a least favourite?
Least favourite, I think, depends who you're wrestling. But I think the worst hatred that I've ever seen was against what's his blinking name? Scottish guy with the bear, the big bear.
Andy Robbins.
Andy Robbins. I wrestled Andy Robbins in Scotland at Kelvin Halls in Glasgow, and Glasgow hardcore, and it's a big venue. It's a long way to the ring, a big walk to the ring. And I was on with Andy Robbins. They, halfway through the match, because people run into the ring and grabbing my legs and grabbing and picking Andy Robbins up, and the people were trying to get in the ring all the time. So the security decided that's a good idea would be to bring some tables from the back. They stopped the bow, bring some tables, and put tables around the ring so that people couldn't get that close. So I decided that that's a great thing. So I think the first time I'd ever been thrown through a table was me and Andy Robbins. I picked Andy Robbins up and threw him over the table. Then jumped outside and slammed him on the table. By this time now the crowd are going wild, they're absolutely berserk. So now the crowd decided to throw all the tables in the ring. So we couldn't wrestle for the tables, I had to go. This went on, it was one thing after another. It was amazing. And so the security come to get me out of the ring because the crowd was trying to kill me. So they get me out of the ring, they get me through the curtains, and one of the security men pulls a knife out and tried to stab me in the belly with it. Seriously. And I saw it, and I saw him doing it. And that's the dangerous part of the business. And I've been all over the world and seen it happen everywhere. And I've seen guys get really beaten badly by the crowd. That's dangerous. I mean, England's fantastic. Someone might hit you with a handbag, so what? Not bothered, you know. Somebody might get the walking stick and tap you on the leg or whatever. It doesn't matter. That's not really that harsh. But in some countries, they really go out to get you. I said I'd never wrestle in Puerto Rico again. Puerto Rico, they get bamboo sticks. They sharpen the end of the bamboo sticks. They go around the corner, they piddle on the stick, and as you're walking in, they prod you with it.
It's got a terrible reputation in Puerto Rico.
And I said I'm going to go again. So they said, no, it's dead safe. We've got a big, huge cage over to go from the dressing room to the ring. You're in a cage, you go to the cage. But the worst ever violence ever that I ever saw was early when I was just breaking loose, when I started. I changed from being a very technical wrestler and being on first to being a bit more aggressive. And I was wrestling in Spain, and I was in Valencia. And I was on with the local guy in Valencia, and accidentally I kicked his ear, and his ear came unclipped. So about this far of his ear came off his face. You know, it was that area really punched blood, and there was a huge amount of blood, and the people rioted, properly rioted. There was people getting stampeded on the bleachers. There were people running down, and the people at the bottom were getting trodden on. So the police. Loads of police were there, and they backed loads of security kept the people out of the ring by hitting them with bits of wood. And the police came to the ring and backed a Black Mariah up to the ring and roughly got me in the back of the truck, and then drove through. And while I was in the back of the truck, the policeman said to me, "Lie on the floor." And if I hadn't laid on the floor, I'd have probably got stabbed or whatever, because they were hitting the side of it's not a van, you know, they hit the side of the van with the metal chairs, and there was chinks of light coming here and bang, and it's pretty scary to be in a van that's being hit with metal chairs, but being hit with hundreds of metal chairs, being thrown and being hit, and loads of people got injured that night, and I went to court the next day, I had to go to court and was charge with a fray or with causing a disturbance or anything else. And the promoter was there, explained what happened, and it was all okay. But it was a very, very scary night. And the other big scary night I've had a few. Anyway, we go on that further. Lots of very dangerous situations.
Back over in the UK, you moved from joint promotions to all-star promotions.
Yeah. And here's the reason, because Big Daddy had a fantastic profile. He was very well thought of. He had a fantastic following, and he had his own market. And there was a fantastic place for him in the business, and he was a great crowd puller. There's no question of that. He was a fantastic crowd puller. But unfortunately, if your brother's the promoter, your other brother's the referee, and you've got the owners of the promotion, when all the promotions amalgamated and joint promotions were bought, instead of having 6 or 7 promotions which formed joint promotions, one guy had the total say. And Max Crabtree was doing really well in Scotland. He was also doing really well with Big Daddy on the smaller shows, and he ended up getting the whole running of the whole business, including the television. And the whole thing revolved around Big Daddy. And when you go to shows and you know that the people aren't there to see Big Daddy, they're there because he's there as well, but you know that the people have come to see your match, which was my match. And you know that the majority of people are there to see that, not to see Big Daddy belly butting somebody. And if you're on a big show, he's on and you're on, and I think to myself, I think I've pulled most of these people in here tonight, not Big Daddy. I mean, he was a great draw, I'm not knocking that. But just at the time when I was getting a bit sick of being second fiddle to Daddy, or fifth fiddle, whatever you want to say, I had a meeting with Oric Williams and Brian Dixon. They phoned me and I spoke to them. I've known Oric for years. He's a fantastic guy. I love him. He's like a family now. He's a wonderful guy. And Brian Dixon I've known since I was 12, as I mentioned to you before. I used to stand at the back as a kid with Brian Dixon at Liverpool Stadium. Brian Dixon is a great guy. I love him to death. He's fantastic. He's got a great vision for the business. People hate him because of different things he's done over the years, but being a promoter isn't easy. You can't please anybody. So Brian and Oric came to see me, and I was living in England. I was living in a very nice house in England, and we had a barbecue one Saturday afternoon, and we sat there for a while. And we got talking about the business, and I started talking about my ways and ideas with the future of the business. And they gave me a guarantee, and the guarantee was that I would have a big say in what happened with the shows. I could, I'd have some input, and also I would give them help in bringing people forward, seeing young talent and bringing it forward, and promoting the business in a better light than was being promoted at that time. And it was just something that I thought, and I'd also got my Japan contracts, which was huge for that time, for those days, and money-wise, nobody in Europe had seen me like it. So that was fantastic. Joint promotions, which were controlled at that time completely by Max Crabtree, he didn't like me going to Japan because it left gaps in his schedules. So he was giving me ultimatums about Japan. I didn't want to hear that. And the other people, Brian and Oric, had some good venues. They had some really cracking venues. And I said, yeah, we'll do it. So I had Japan, that was my main income. And I thought, this is the only chance I'm going to ever get of being able to move from joint promotion. I've been with for 14 years, a long time to be with a company, and was one of the main stars of joint promotions, and moved to the other operation. And it just went really well. And the first year I was there with them, the first few months I was there, I went with Brian to we were in London anyway, and there's a big show on called Showcase, and this was a big show that had all the managers of all the halls and all the venues in the UK. They went, and it was like a fair, it was like a sales fair. And they had all the facilities of the arenas. So the managers would be there, the directors of the company would be there, and all the people who were going to put shows on, and all the people that were there were agents. Agents were buying the venues. So they'd say, we want to put a pop group on, we need so many seats, we need this facility, that facility. And they'd go and look at all the different venues and see the facilities they had. And they gave us, everyone that went, they gave them a brochure of the stadium, you know, what facilities it got, what backstage facilities it got, and everything. And then the people put the shows on according to what facilities the venues had got. And I went along there with Brian, and I knew, because I've been around the circuit, I knew, not all, but a lot of the managers, a lot of the backstage people from these different venues. So I went along and everybody made a big fuss of me. And where have you been? We've not seen you at our hall, we've not seen you at Colson Hall, Bristol, we've not seen you at Fairfield Hall, Croydon. What are you doing? Well, have you finished wrestling? No, I'm wrestling for another company. So we then walked away from there with a few handshakes. And the few handshakes were that we could promote wrestling at these different venues, which had always been tied up by joint promotions. So we've got better venues. And then the next thing that happened was that I had already made, I'd been friends with some of the people from World of Sport for a while. Richard Roundtree was one of the directors of World of Sport, and he was very friendly with me, and Ken Walton stayed friends with me until he died. And I knew some of the backstage people and some of the people that had the say in the wrestling, or in World of Sport. And we got talking about the possibility of breaking up the dominated TV coverage. I was not the first person that moved from joint promotion. The first person that moved from having a very good slot and having a TV shot and everything was Big John Quinn. When John Quinn came to England, he was a phenomenal. He was really, really hot to trot. And he did the big thing in Wembley with Big Daddy. I was on that show as well, but they put him on the top of the bill. And fantastic response. They got fantastic press response. And John Quinn was a big star. And he was the first one that went to joint promotions. The second one, to All-Star Promotions and Oleg Williams and everything else. The first one that he was from Canada, he was there on a short lease, he wasn't there long. So he didn't have anything to lose. It wasn't as if he was going to go, if he didn't go well, would go back to joint promotions because he'd just go back to Canada. So he wasn't taking any risks. So the guy that went along really as a well-known face was Tony Sinclair. So John Quinn went first, then Tony Sinclair went. Tony was a good friend of mine, I've known him for many years. His family and my family grew up together. You know. So Tony went over and he was getting really well looked after. So when Brian and Dixon and Ollie Williams came to my house in Manchester, and we sat in the garden, we had a barbecue, and we talked about wrestling like we're doing now. We talked about wrestling until it went dark. We were all day talking about wrestling, and our ideas were very similar, especially mine and Brian's ideas. So I said, we can do something here, something good can be made of this meeting. So John Quinn went and Tony Sinclair went, and I watched carefully how that worked, and that worked very well. They were getting well treated, they were getting looked after, they were getting incredible money from what they were getting before from joint promotions. And there's a limit with the wages in joint promotions, which wasn't an issue for Ollie Williams, for example. If the hall was full, Ollie Williams was happy to pay you what you wanted. If it was empty, I mean, loads of times, for different reasons, that I've wrestled for a promoter that's not done very clever on the night, and I've always took a cut in the wages or not even charged, you know, so forget it, pay me next time, you know. Luckily I was in a position to be able to do that. If it wasn't very, if you were depending on the money, you'd have been in a different situation. But I had a good relationship with the promoter with that. So I looked at that and I thought, yeah, this is the chance to go. So when I made the decision to go, it was a major decision because I could never have gone back. So me being with that group of people, with those promoters, helped to get the TV, and we split the TV shows. And TV didn't lose any viewers, it gained viewers. When it went off the TV, it was so popular, it was as popular as it's ever been. And as you know, when I've spoken to you about this before, advertising rates are charged by the viewing audiences. So if you get gardening program in the afternoon. If you're a personal and you want to advertise personal soap powder, it'll cost you so much a minute. But it'll cost you a lot less in the afternoon while the housewives programs are on than it will do on Saturday night, 9 o'clock at peak time viewing. Our wrestling slots was the most expensive advertising per minute rate of any other time during the week, even Saturday night. So we had the top of the ratings, and it went off television not because of the ratings, because the ratings were fantastic, and also the income from the advertising was fantastic. It went off because Greg Dyke, who has been at both of the ITV and BBC, who's been around for a long time, decided that it was a bit old-fashioned, and they took wrestling off and they put on, I don't know, tiddlywinks, I don't know, snakes and ladders, I don't know, something related to sport, I don't know. He didn't particularly like it, so it was his choice that he took it off. I've spoken to him afterwards, and he knows that he made a grave mistake because he lost advertising revenue and viewers, and he did, and he admits it.
He also managed to mess up Match of the Day on the BBC when he moved over there.
He's absolutely, he's done that. If he'd worked for me, he'd have been gone years ago.
Just moving back slightly, there was a show that I really liked, and then I thought it was new, it was different, it's a wrestling show, of course, and it was satellite wrestling on the cable.
It's fantastic, yeah.
I just wondered what part you played in that. Obviously, it was pushed as the main star.
I was the main man on that, yeah. It was a new concept of idea. The guy that was behind it was a boxing promoter called Pat Brogan. And Pat Brogan's quite an influential boxing promoter. I saw him recently at a boxing show. My son was boxing in Manchester. I went along there. It was an Anglo-American boxing event, and Pat Brogan was there. And we had a real reminisce about the old days, you know. But Pat Brogan had an idea, and with our help, what he said was, if I got a TV slot, a satellite slot, could we put a show on? And that's how it started, and it went from there. And those satellite shows was fantastic. They were absolutely great, you know. And some of the stars from some of the youngsters from there have gone on really well, and some of the Americans, Steve Regal and that, were shown first on there, and he's now gone on to America and done big things. But I made some good friends from that show, and Max Beasley, whose son now is a big. Max was the announcer, also Vince Miller was. They're still working in sports entertainment, but that show, that satellite show, was fantastic, and also Welsh television was really good. Here's an interesting story. Again, I'm not just saying because of me, but I was very influenced in getting these other TV shows. Oleg said to me, "We have got a TV slot for Welsh television." Fantastic. Oleg was doing something with Welsh television, and he mentioned it, and he pushed me forward as being the star of the show. So they bought the idea. So Oleg said, "I've signed the contract. The first show is on such and such a day. The first show is on the 18th of July. Okay. So I said, well, that's the week my wife is having our first baby. But Jonathan the boxer, now that was the date that he was due to be born. So I said to Ori, that's, you know, he said, you have to be there. So I said, right. He said, I don't care if your wife's having triplets or quadruplets or whatever you call them, you have to be at the first wrestling show because it's based a lot around you. Okay. So I spoke to my wife and I said, what do you think? So she said, yeah, go for it. So it was a 10-to-1 chance that Jonathan was born on the day of the TV show. So at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, when Anne's in labour, after about 3 hours of labour, I have to get in the car and drive to Wales to do to wrestle on the TV show. So that's commitment to the sport. To be able to leave your wife in labour, having a first child, 3 hours into labour, and get your key for your car and walk out from that hospital and get in your car, drive 2 hours, get to the venue, get ready and wrestle on TV. And it had to be good because it was the first TV airing of that Welsh channel. And get back in the car and drive back, and your wife's had the baby when you were away. That's real commitment.
Shortly after that, you was on both satellite and on ITV Sport. You was portrayed as a babyface for the first time in a long, long time after
Yeah.
being a villain.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story. That people who booed me also had great respect for me as a wrestler, and all the people that hated me worst. I mean, we saw at the wrestling reunion, we saw Mad Eli. Mad Eli was my worst. He hated me more than anyone else. He used to hate, shout, scream, and all the rest of it. But he also had a great respect for me as a wrestler, and so did all the fans that booed me. Also had a great respect. And I don't think that's ever been lost. I think they've always thought that they knew I was good, and they knew that I could do what I intended to do. And they booed me because I probably overpowered the lesser wrestlers and took, they think, liberties with them, which is part of the sport, you know. But I don't ever think for a minute that the fans who really booed me really hated me. So we get to a stage where looking at ideas, and Dave Finlay was at this time on the scene as well. And the big guy who had been hated for years and years was Ken Nagasaki. So I said to Brian Dixon, what would pull your biggest house? He said, a match that would never work, so people wouldn't know what to do. I watched that. So he said, a match between you and Ken Nagasaki. And I said, let's do it. And he said, how can you do two bad guys fighting each other? Because historically, that's death. The audience don't know who to support. They don't support anyone. It ends up as a deathly silence. If they went out there and chopped each other's legs off with a meat cleaver, they'd laugh. It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't mean anything. And I said, trust me, put it on. And Brian Dixon said, it will never, ever work. We'll regret it. I said, try it. And he said, he put it on. I forget what it was. I forget what the first one was. I think the first one was in Bristol or something like that, where I was really, really hated. And I thought, I've got to do something. I've got to make this work. I've got to think of an idea to get this to work. So I went to the ring 5 minutes early. At the middle of the interval, I got the microphone. I got the people quiet. They're all booing. Everyone's booing. Yeah, Rocco, boo. All booing. I got them. I waited 5 minutes. They all eventually listened. And I said to them, listen, you just don't like me, I know. I said, but, and you also don't like Ken Nagasaki. But this is the game, this is what's going to happen. I need your support to beat this guy. All those people that hate me, I don't care if you hate me or you love me, but I'm going out there and I'm going to fight on your behalf. I'm going to beat Nagasaki, take his mask off, and beat him with your help, with you behind me. I can do it. You know what? I got the biggest cheer you've ever in your life, and I wrestled Nagasaki, and the place was absolutely electric with booing and cheering. You couldn't believe it. Brian Dixon nearly collapsed with amazement when he saw it happen. And that match, and matches like it, went round all over the place after that. And I didn't really want to be, I didn't want to be a babyface or a hero. I wanted to be me, Rollerball Rocco. And if they booed me for whatever reason. But it fitted perfectly with the Nagasaki scenario. Because he'd been around years as a bad guy. No one ever thought he was a good guy. But they didn't know about me. They had some respect for me. They knew that I was a good wrestler. They knew I could do what I said I'd do. I knew I was better than anybody else at what I did. And they knew that there was a possibility of me beating fair and square. You know, and I mean, it was electric. That made a lot of money for everybody, including me. And Nagasaki. And I saw, at the wrestling union, I saw the manager for Nagasaki. Not Gorgeous George.
Lloyd Ryan.
Lloyd Ryan. I saw Lloyd Ryan, and Lloyd Ryan said that the best matches Nagasaki ever had with me, and I believe that's true.
It is true because he said that to me himself, so that is definitely true. Right, yeah. What led to you moving home to Tenerife?
When I'd made a lot of money in the wrestling by doing the Japan thing and doing the American and all And I made a lot of money and I lived in a big house in England. I thought that the operation on my back would finish my career, which it almost did. I didn't do it, I wrestled after that, but I thought that this was the time. And I thought, I don't want to be hanging on, like lots of wrestlers do, hang on too long. I was only 36, 37. I thought, if I'm going to go, I'm going to go on top, and I still look good. And in England, at the time, I was, from the television, I was very recognised, and it was very difficult. And if I went, nobody ever stopped doing this, now and again here, but they still do in England. When I go to Leicester Airport, all the guys that have been on the desk for you, looking at the passports, and the guys that check you through security, they all know me. You know, it's amazing that I've been through the airport that many times. They all know me for all those years I've been travelling. And if I'm in Manchester, I still get people that recognise me now. Now here, nobody knows me. They do. They know me for me, but they don't know me for the wrestling days. But the kids were growing up. The kids were in England. It was cold. It was wet. I'd really wanted to get away from. If I wasn't going to wrestle in England, I wanted to be away, because wrestling, you suffer all the things that go with it. You suffer people recognise you, shout you dirty bastard, throwing things in the car. You suffer all that because you're in that celebrity thing. If you're not in it and you're still getting recognised, get recognition for it, it's not worth it. So we could have a much better lifestyle here than we could in England. People get to know you live in England. I mean, if you're a bit of a celebrity, it's a bit of murder. They sit outside the door, they put things in the letterbox, they draw on your walls, all that stuff, you know what I mean? And I would have been arrested every week there, you know, if it had stayed. So I came to live here and don't regret 1 minute. We've been here nearly 20 years now. And it was a good move. I mean, we brought the kids here when they were kids, 4 and 3 and 4, 4 and 5. They went to English school and then they went to Spanish school. They're bilingual, they speak fluent Spanish. They've got a different view on life than living here than you do in England. And the decision to go live here was, I mean, you're here on holiday now and you know what the lifestyle is. The temperature's fantastic. I get up every morning, put a pair of shorts on, go in my garden, pick my fruit off the trees. Fantastic, it's unbelievable.
You tell me what about this serious health scare that actually led to in early days of training, the training methods were a lot different than, when I say early days, I'm not talking about hundreds of years, I'm talking about in my days when I was in the gym every day. They had different ideas of fitness and fitness levels. And I used to train to exhaustion, which nobody does now. They train to within a scale. If they're going too fast or too slow, a buzzer beeps and they speed up or slow down. And the control, they say now, your heartbeat should never reach a maximum of a certain level. And they gauge that level by your age against the maximum heartbeat. And they say you should never push your heart higher than that. Now I pushed my heart for a period of about 20 years to its extreme limits. So I used to train to exhaustion, and that was fantastic. Lots of people did that at that time. That was what fitness was about. They used to train to a maximum, and then the recovery time. They used to measure the recovery time. So you used to train until you couldn't absolutely do it, and then stop and breathe and see how quickly you get back to a normal heartbeat rhythm. So you're pushing your heart all the time. All the years of doing that caused my heart, like any other muscle, to be any muscle extends with use. And my heart became enormous. And instead of being, I mean, the heart should be bigger than your fist, maybe this big. It should be flexible. If you train that muscle to extreme lengths, like bodybuilders do with the muscles, it becomes big and it becomes hard and it becomes less flexible and less efficient. So instead of your heart doing that and pumping a small active heart which pumps the blood in and out, the heart becomes massive, like an elephant has a massive heart which beats slowly. Your heart becomes massive, and with that it becomes irregular in beating. It only beats when it needs to do.
And lots of athletes have it. Sebastian Coe, lots of those people have had this same thing with irregular heartbeat. Now, irregular heartbeat on its own isn't a problem. When I came to live here, they tried to regulate it. They tried to stop it and start it again, and get it into a sinus rhythm to make it work properly. But at the same time as all this happened, I had the first of my back operations when they fixed my back, and I got a pulmonary embolus, which is blood clots that travelled into my lungs and heart. And that was a very serious procedure, which caused the doctors to zap me with a defibrillator 13 times to get me going. So this big old hard heart, this massive heart, was zapped with a defibrillator 13 times. Didn't do it any good. So that's the second scare. The first scare was when I had this irregular heartbeat. But a lot of people have that now. I heard that one of the American presidents has had the same thing recently.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it was Bush. I don't think
it was Clinton. Was it?
Clinton, and also Tony Blair's now got a pacemaker.
Yeah.
So I've got a pacemaker. I've had a pacemaker 10 years, and that pacemaker they've taken away the irregular heartbeat by taking out the natural pacemaker in your heart. They've cauterized it, and they've put in a pacemaker box, which is only a little box, it's steel, isn't it? And it just sends a beat to the heart, which keeps the heart beating in a sinus rhythm all the time. So that's okay, but all that's from the wrestling business, all of that stuff.
Can you just tell me a little bit about your business today and your lifestyle, what you do in your spare time and what your business entails?
Okay, well, we've been very busy here for the last few years, last 10 years. We've had a lot of businesses here. We were involved with restaurants, we were involved with bars. We had a big rent-a-car company here for many years. I think we had 15 years of the rent-a-car. And at one time it was the biggest on the island. It was bigger than Hertz and Avis in about 94, 93, 94, that sort of era. When I was 50, my wife gave me a birthday present, and that was some contracts to sign, and that was the sales of I had a chain of fish and chip shops here, which were the first fish and chip shop on the island, really, more or less. So we had those. They were successful to start with, and they were getting very tiresome to run and operate and look after. Staff's very difficult here, you know. And then we had we opened the first internet office here. We had we were the first internet provider here, before anybody else. Now there's about 20 companies doing it. We've always sold property here, and in the last 10 years I've been building property as well, building villas, nice villas. So we sell and buy property, and we build it. I've had a fairground in England for goodness, a long time, probably 28 years or 27 years. And we've got other little interests in buying and selling off plans and different things with property. But now all of that, we've compacted it all into mainly in our estate agency operation, our estate agency business, which we really like. We find a great pleasure in doing that. And all those stressful things, over the last couple of years, we've liquidated or sold, and they've all gone. We just now really involved with property sales, and I've been doing that a long time, and I have a strong influence here with property sales.
And does that have any spare time at all?
Yeah, I'm working nothing like as hard as I did 10 years ago. My lifestyle is very relaxed at the moment. I've got lots of people work for me, and I go to the office every day. I go to the office I get in the office about 10 o'clock, and by 3 o'clock I try and leave and not always go home, but I try and leave the business and try and have weekends free. I've never had weekends free until this last year, and now I don't work. I finish Friday afternoon, I have Saturday and Sunday off and just relax. But we've got a fantastic lifestyle here, you know. I mean, I've got a big boat in the harbour. We go out on weekends on the boat. I've got the other house in Las Americas, which is 4 bedrooms and a big pool. We can go there at weekends and relax there. But this is my favourite house at the moment because it's a project in construction. You've seen around, I'll show you around in a little while, but it's in a beautiful part of Tenerife, and this is what Tenerife is about. Not Veronica's, not the Strip, not down on the front, fish and chips and ice cream. I'm talking about this is the real Tenerife, where the wildlife is, where people do not see this, and we live right amongst it. And we have different climates here. We have a log fire in the winter. In the summer, it's amazingly hot. We get all the seasonal changes. We've got fruit trees. We've got a massive barranca, which is a big riverbed at the bottom here. And this is a different lifestyle than living down in Las Americas with the tourists. We still like that thing as well, and we do go down. Next weekend, we're going to stay down in the bottom house. We'll be on the beach or in the pool during the day. And then we'll walk to our local restaurants or tourist restaurants down the bottom. But if we go for a meal at the bottom and it's a touristic atmosphere, like being on holiday, when we come here and we go to our local restaurant, it's like being with the farmers. It's great, different lifestyle together. But we've got the best of both worlds, and we've got a fabulous lifestyle.